नमस्कार। मेरे इस YouTube चैनल के आरंभ करते हुए मैं अपनी डिफरेंट एपिसोड्स में मैं अपने अनुभव और विचार प्रस्तुत करूंगा। यह भाषा के उन सब रूपों में कहे जाएंगे जिन्हें मैं जानता हूं। इनमें इंग्लिश और हिंदी और कभी-कभी थोड़े से उर्दू शब्दों का प्रयोग होगा। इनमें कविताएं, भजन, दोहे, संस्कृत से ट्रांसलेशंस, आख्यान यानी नरेटिव्स, लघु कहानियाँ और संस्मरण होंगे। मैंने 40 साल तक डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ एटॉमिक एनर्जी में वैज्ञानिक बनकर काम किया। कुछ नए तथ्य ढूंढे, उनको भी विभिन्न एपिसोड्स में मैं प्रस्तुत करने का प्रयास करूंगा। पर एक एपिसोड का चरित्र विषय एक ही होगा। एपिसोड्स आर लाइकली टू बी साप्ताहिक। यादें कुछ ऐसी होती हैं जो हमें अपने खट्टे मीठे समय में ले जाती हैं। कुछ तो हमें बहुत दुखी करती हैं, पर कुछ यादें ऐसी भी होती हैं जो हमको हमेशा गुदगुदाती रहती हैं। ऐसी ही कुछ यादें लेकर मैं इस अपने एपिसोड 3 में आपके सामने आया हूँ। आपको वो यादें प्रस्तुत करूँगा। I retired in 2012. Post-retirement, I got an offer from IIT Kanpur, which I gladly joined. When I was going for my first lecture at IIT Kanpur, that is, when I was going to teach the subject Power Plant Dynamics as distinguished visiting professor, of course post-retirement, I saw 3 professors of IIT Kanpur Mechanical Engineering Department coming to me one after another. They told me that they would accompany me to the class. I was sort of wondering why. Of course, my class was one of the biggest class at that time in the whole IIT Kanpur. As my subject was optional subject and was open to all the PhD, MTech and MTech students, third year and fourth year BTech students and science students. The classroom allotted to me was also the biggest one. It had seats rising in a staircase fashion, 10 to 15 rows up. I had never given a talk in such a room. A mic was also provided so that the full class can listen clearly when what the lecturer says. And of course, there was a PowerPoint projector which I connected to my tablet. But still, I asked the professors why they need to come. What role do they have when I am taking the class? The answer surprised me. They said that the moment these students come to know, they sense that the lecturer is new to IIT, they would make his life miserable right in the first class. They will make his life hell. And they were there, they will sit in the class and control the class so that they do not make any noise. And they came and sat in 3 different corners where they can observe the class well. What they did not know, that I am from Bhabha Atomic Research Center. I had my training school experience and I was confident that I knew how to make the class attentive. I spoke loudly and clearly into the mic. I kept moving from left to right and right to left, and from front to many rows up to the back of the room and back to the front. Apart from this, I had many tricks up my sleeve to keep the class attentive. I told them to pay the attention to what I speak from the point of view of getting marks in the exams. I knew from my experience of being a student myself at IIT Madras that marks matter a lot to the IIT students. Though I told them I would definitely provide them all the relevant pages of different textbooks which I consulted for preparing the talk. Actually, I kept the pages, relevant pages, with the Xerox machine wala at the IIT Kanpur, so that if a student wants to get a Xerox copy of those pages, he can easily go to him and get a copy without having to purchase those costly books. But I also told the students what I am going to speak would also include what is there in between the lines. So you will not get it in those Xerox pages. You have to listen to me. And it will also contain many parts of my speech will consider which is what is derived from the application of those principles. So if you want to get marks, better pay attention to what I say. The second thing which I told them, which I know students like very much, I told them that I very much enjoy students asking very tough questions, doubts, and I enjoy getting them clarified in the class itself. This all had a very positive effect on the class. The class, which had students from so many disciplines and at so many levels, was liked this idea very much. Of course, I was very tired at the end when the class ended, because it was almost for 1 hour continuous talking, going up and down, left and right. So after every class, my legs used to pain very much. Climbing so many rows, so many times in an hour was not my cup of tea. But I was glad this all resulted in a pin drop silence among the students throughout that first 1 hour of my class. After that, of course, no professor accompanied me to the class. If the class is so big and you take an examination for which you have to give the results within a few days, it is very difficult to correct and descriptive type of paper. I was practically forced to set an objective type of paper for the tests and exams. Otherwise, it was almost impossible to check the papers for so many students, which were almost 150 in number, in a limited time. Though I had 3 persons for assisting me, because IIT students are very fussy about their marks and can keep arguing for very long. I remember once such a case where the students argued that the option he chose in one of the objective type of questions was also correct. I did not agree with him. It was different from the correct one for which the marks were given. But he did not give up. To satisfy me, he brought a 1-page derivation, more than 1 page actually, to prove his point. I went through the derivation, it was correct. I felt very embarrassed, but I was glad that he took such a deep interest in my subject. I thought, in a way it reflects on how I teach. I am able to generate that interest in the students. So I gave this particular student bonus marks for taking such an active interest in my subject. But of course, I did not tell him this. In the next class, I asked him to go to the board and explain his derivation to the full class, that how he proved his professor wrong. He was surprised, but I could notice at the same time he was overjoyed. It must have been a very proud moment for him when he is able to prove his professor wrong and impress the class, which of course included many girls, and for students at that age it matters. Contrary to my expectations, this student started respecting me much more after this incident. Once, while returning from canteen, he followed me. I did not know he is following me. He could not help telling me later that you look so lazy and ordinary outside the class. But what happens when you start your talk? When you get onto the platform, you become so active and energetic. It reminded me that the vice chairman at Atomic Energy Regulatory Board, where I spent my last few years, my vice chairman told the chairman after one of my talks that Gupta, when he goes on stage, every characteristics of his changes. He becomes so confident, displaying clarity of thought, and very effective. He becomes very effective in communicating. So let me tell you about another incident which many times जो मुझे काफ़ी गुदगुदाती है बहुत समय पर. I had been invited as an expert post-retirement for the promotion interview of a scientific officer of Bhabha Atomic Research Center. In Bhabha Atomic Research Center, for the promotion considerations of its officers, a committee is constituted which consists of about 6 or 7 core committee members and 2 expert members. The experts members are so selected that they know that they are expert in the field in which the candidate is going for promotion. They all ask technical questions and then decide if the candidate gets promotion. I was very glad to see lot of lady members in the core committee. The candidate fared well and got his promotion. In the evening, I went to the reception counter of the guest house for collecting my room key. What I saw, a lady was very busy talking to the receptionist. I noticed that she was from the core members of the interview committee. On seeing me, she suddenly stopped, looked at me and said, "Sir, do you remember me?" I did not. She continued, "You saved my life once." How could it be that I would not remember that if this is true? I told her that she was confusing me with someone else. But she was sure and tried to make me recollect. She said, "Do you remember many years back you took trainees of BRC training school to Kalpakam for nuclear power plant site visit?" That of course I remembered. I had taken this training school batch only once. Only once I had accompanied this training school batch to such a power plant. Then she continued, "Do you remember that all of us stayed in a guest house which was very near to the sea beach. Yes, of course, that was also true. She continued that on one evening, our visit was for a week, so she said, on one evening, while taking a stroll on the seashore, you held the hands of a trainee girl whom the retreating waves of the sea were carrying along with it into the sea. Now I could recollect everything. I immediately asked, "Was that you?" I asked, and she replied in affirmative. It seems that day she lost her balance and was being carried into the sea by the waves when I noticed her and held her hands firmly. She almost thought that she is going to drown that day into the sea. I suddenly started feeling very proud of myself because of that more than 2 decade old incident. I did not know the name of that girl even then, but the very fact that someone believes that I saved her life was enough for me to feel very proud of. This is true that at that time of the incident, I did not think much of it. It was actually not much, so it was natural for me not to remember it. But today, I feel very happy when I think of it. ये मेरे को ज़रूर कई समय पर गुदगुद आती है. Thank you very much for watching this episode. Next episode, I am going to take up a technical problem which is not given in any book, but it is very relevant for design of a nuclear power reactor. Thank you so much.